What's up everyone? In this video, we're going to discuss managing pseudo-element variants in Tailwind CSS. Before we get started though, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and getting notifications so you never miss when I release a video about Tailwind, Payload CMS, Next.js, and more. If you'd like to see the code that I use in this video, there's a link to the repo in the description. Now, let's dive in. In the last video, we discussed how Tailwind CSS handles pseudo-classes, which is a keyword added to a selector to enable you to style a specific state of a selected element, such as its hover state. Tailwind CSS calls these different states of an element variants. This was all discussed in the previous video, so if any of this is unfamiliar to you, I highly encourage you to go back and watch that video. Pseudo-elements, the topic of this video, are keywords added to a selector to enable you to style a specific part of an element. For example, you're able to use pseudo-elements to target the styles of what comes before or after an element. So let's start there. You can change what comes before or after an element by using the before or after variants provided by Tailwind. Tailwind will automatically add a content property with an empty string by default, so you don't have to specify it unless you want a different value. To show this in action, let's create a simple input inside of our content with media component here, and I'm putting all of this in a fragment so there is one shared parent element. And then we will use a div and we'll include the class name of flex justify center p4 for a rem of padding. And then we'll include a label which will have a span with the class name of after content with this asterisk. We'll then have after text red of 400, and again after with margin left with the value of 1. And within this span we'll have email, and we'll have an input underneath which is going to be set to be required, and I'll explicitly say true even though that's not necessary. And we'll do type of email, we'll do name email, and for a placeholder we'll say my email address at midlowwebdesign.com. So now when I save this, we'll see at the top here we have our email input that we just created with the placeholder and this asterisk here added to the end of the label. So to put this in simple terms, this string of class names uses an arbitrary value, like our asterisk, for the content, assigns the color red to it of the 400 shade, and then adds a small left margin to the asterisk. Now we have a field that looks and is required. Now, what if we wanted a style description to be added to the bottom of this email field? So let's create a paragraph tag that says, please provide your email address. For email address, we're going to wrap that in a span, and then again, we'll wrap that span in another span. For our paragraph tag, we're going to add the class name of text emerald 950. And in this first span, we're going to add the class names of before bg amber 500, before absolute, before inset1, before block, and for the last before, skew y3, and then relative inline block. And in the second span, we're going to add another class name that's going to have text white and relative. So now when we refresh, we'll see this please provide your email address, and email address is highlighted in this askew background color. It should be noted that you should save before and after pseudo-elements for situations where it's important that the content of the pseudo-element is not in the DOM and can't be selected by the user. The code we just added, for example, could be more cleanly written without the use of pseudo-classes. If you want to target the styles of the placeholder text in an input, you can use the placeholder variant to do that. In our example, we have a placeholder that contains my email address in the input field. If I want to change that to a different color, font weight, and font size, we can do that by setting a class name of something like placeholder, font bold, and again, placeholder, text red 400 with an opacity of 30, and then finally placeholder with text extra small. Now when I save this, we see all of those changes applied right there. We can also target the button in file inputs by using the file variant in Tailwind. Let's remove this lovely input we've been creating and replace it with an input with the type of file in between the display flex div we have. So I will remove all of this, then we'll put in our new input with the type of file, and we'll just let this generate so we can see what this looks like. So right now, there are no styles applied to our file input, but we can add class name and then file BG Emerald 400, file text Emerald 950. Then we'll do rounded full on the file, and then again, file with padding left and right of 1 rem. And we'll do padding top and bottom of 0.5 rem. And then finally, we'll include text emerald with an opacity of 50 for the rest of the input. We can save that and see this refresh to look much better than it did as just a raw input. As I mentioned in a previous video about Tailwind, pre-flight removes styles from lists by default. This means you'll need to restyle the list exactly how you want it to be. Luckily, Tailwind CSS makes this easy to do. We can remove our file input now and put in a new unordered list element. We need to add the role equals list for screen readers to be able to understand that this is an actual list. We'll then create 3 list items, and in it we will include 3 tasks to get done, like get groceries, then make dinner, and then I will stream a live coding session. To make this look like a list, the first thing we'll do is add list disk. And then we can style those markers by using the marker variant, and we can just change the color to something like text emerald 400 and hit save. You can also stack variants here, so if we only wanted this to apply when hovered over, we can add hover to the beginning of that. We see it shifts back to black, and then if I hover over them, they turn into the emerald 400 shade. If you want to change how text highlighting works, you can do that with the selection pseudo-element. We'll enable this for our rich text component by adding selection BG white and selection text black to maintain our contrast. Now, if I save that, I can highlight any of this text and I see that the selection is white and the text is black. What if we wanted to keep the default behavior the same on small screen sizes like mobile, but change it for everything else? Well, we could add the small variant to the beginning of both of these selections. And if we go to our smallest screen size, we can see that the highlighting is the same as the default. But if we go into a bigger screen size, we can see that the highlight has changed and the text color has changed as well. You can even do the same thing with dark mode, which I'm currently in dark mode. So I might want to put not dark, and we can see that our styles change back to the default. But if I add the dark variant, our highlight changes again. While there can be some stylistic benefit to only including the selection variant in only one component, it may make more sense to put your selection variant in the body tag so it applies to all selectable elements. You can target the first line and first letter of a block of content too. Using the first line variant, you can style just the first line of a section of text. So if you wanted only your first line to be a serif font family, you can do that by adding the utility class first line font serif. So we'll do that now here in our rich text, where we can add first line font serif. Now if I save this, our first line, which is this title here, gets applied a serif font. In the same way, you can impact just the first letter in a block of content by using the first letter variant. Let's float the first letter of our content to give our rich text component a book type feel. To keep things clean and to show a different way of doing things, I'm going to create a const called first letter at the top of our component here. And we're going to set that equal to a string value, which is going to be first letter float left, first letter margin right 3, first letter text of 7XL, first letter font bold, first letter text gray 900. I can then add that variable to my class name here with just adding first letter there. And when we save this, we can see that our first letter is big and bold, just like it would be in the beginning of a chapter of a book. The last pseudo element we'll cover is the backdrop variant. This allows you to style the native dialogue element. You can use dialogues to create things like modals. So this variant comes in handy in lots of use cases. You can directly style the dialog like you can with any other element, but the backdrop styles will only appear if you design the dialog as a modal. If you are designing a modal, be sure to use the open variant when conditionally styling the open and closed state of your dialog. More on this in a future video. As you can see, there is a lot you can do in Tailwind CSS, even without having to explicitly set elements to target. This makes Tailwind both powerful and flexible by allowing you to easily target anything you normally would try to style using plain CSS. While adding a lot of variants can make things start to look a little bit messy, using variables to define more complicated styles can help reduce the clutter you may experience in your components. If you found this video helpful, please like it and share it with others who might also find it useful. Check to make sure you're subscribed to my channel and receiving notifications so you never miss when I release more content around Tailwind CSS, Payload CMS, Next.js, and more. If you have questions or suggestions, please leave those in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.